We've all experienced it. It's often very painful, yet we have no idea what to do about it. What is it? Grief. Whether the loss of a loved one, a job, a relationship, or any type of loss, navigating the grieving process can be challenging. In this episode, we give you expert tips that help you cope with grief while moving toward a place of peace and acceptance. Hey, sugar. Now, while many of us have experienced the challenging emotions of grief, most of us have no idea how to navigate the grieving process. So today I'm chatting with Miss Dora Carpenter, founder of the Institute of Professional Grief Coaching and the creator of a non therapy approach to helping us navigate the grief journey. Hey, Dora.
Hello, Dr. Tierini. How are you?
I am doing well, Dora. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode to talk about this not often talked about topic of grief. It's one of those things that we all experience it, but don't want to talk about it, right?
That is so true. It's the elephant in the room.
It is. It is. It is. Now, before we jump in, tell the sugars, who are you?
Well, hello, sugars. I am Dora Carpenter. That's all. I'm the founder, as you said before, of the Institute of Professional Grief Coaching, and that's where we train and certify grief coaches to help individuals to navigate that grief, to go from pain to peace, heartbreak to happiness, and grief to gratitude, and what we hope is the shortest time possible. That's what we do, but we also offer so many other resources just to help individuals to, number one, see what grief really is and how we can handle it from a heart-centered and soul-centered approach.
Mm, that is amazing. That's amazing. And I love something that you said. It just goes right into the first thing that I wanted to ask you. You know, we often think of grief as just being sad, and but grief is more than just sadness. So tell us, what exactly is grief?
Grief is, it's a big ball, but it has a very small definition. Grief is really simply the normal and natural response to loss. It's normal, it's natural, and it's unique to each individual. So just like we have our own unique fingerprint, our own unique DNA, our own unique personality, when we experience loss, whatever form of loss that is, because it's not just loss of a loved one,
Mhm.
then the way we respond to that loss is going to be unique as well. But it's also going to be normal and natural for each individual.
Yeah, that's so good to point out. You pointed out a couple of really good things here. So grief is not just sadness. Grief can include, anxiety. It
Mhm.
can include guilt, anger. I mean, there's so many emotions that we can experience in this grief process, and it's different for everyone, and so we all don't grieve alike. And I love that you stated that it's not just loss of a loved one, because oftentimes we think we reserve grief for funerals, right? you know we don't think about grief in terms of loss of a job, loss of maybe financial stability, or um what are some other areas that you see that we may experience grief that we don't even maybe recognize or attach grief with those type of situations or
Mhm.
experiences?
And that's a great question because what you said is it's profound. Oftentimes we're grieving, but we don't know we're grieving
Hmm.
because we attach grief to the loss of a loved one. So I like to always use the analogy of the tree. When you think about the tree, think about those deep seated roots of the tree, beneath the surface that we don't even see. And to me, I like to say those roots represent the huge spectrum of loss. Those roots represent not just loss of a loved one, loss of friendships, loss of relationships, loss of career, loss of jobs, loss due to infertility, loss due to abandonment, loss due to alienation. I can go on and on and on and on with those roots of the tree. But then when we think about that heavy, 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 sturdy trunk of the tree, to me, that's where we hold all of those painful emotions resulting from the loss. That's where we hold that sadness, that anger, that guilt, that regret, even that relief um, from all of those many forms of losses. And then when we think about the branches of the tree, the leaves, the buds, the flowers. To me, that represents what, if we acknowledge and accept, can be meaning and purpose, new growth, new life, living forward after the loss. So we have to begin with acknowledging and accepting that grief is it's broad. The spectrum is huge and it goes way deeper and beyond just the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you use that analogy of a tree because I actually use that analogy with my coaching clients as well. We
Wow.
often want to stop and start at the top of the tree,
Mhm.
because that's what we see. We see the fruit, we see the
Yes.
leaves, we see the flowers, even in the wintertime, we see the branches, we see that's
Yes.
what we usually draw when we're drawing a tree or thinking about a tree. But really the real work, the real underpinnings, the real getting to that next level or getting to the other side of, like you said, the life after the loss is getting
Right.
to the roots, and that's the thing that we don't see and we really don't want to dig up because it takes a lot of work to get to the roots. We have to actually face that thing. We have to admit it, admit that this is how I feel and get real about what we feel so that we can heal, and so I love that you use that analogy to talk about this grief piece because you're right. Oftentimes we don't know that we're
Like,
grieving. We just think that I'm just frustrated. I'm just, I just need more sleep. Or we will then try to displace what we're feeling
mhm.
onto the barista at Starbucks that didn't make our coffee the right way. When really it's no sugar, you grieving and it's okay,
Mhm. It's
to
okay.
grieve. And I think that's the main thing. Sugar, if you don't take anything else from what you hear, Dora and I say, it's okay to grieve.
Okay.
Grieving does not make you weak. It does not, diminish your capability or who you are. It's a part of the process. So you don't have to chin up, chest out. I'm fine. Oh no, that didn't bother me. No, I'm grieving. That hurt, and that's okay, you know. Um, do you
Mhm.
find that when working with your clients that we often don't want to give ourselves the grace to grieve or
Yes.
reluctance in that grieving process?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's the reasons are varied for that. Oftentimes, as sugars, we feel that because we're strong, because
Yeah.
we're resilient, because of the fact that it's innate for us to quote unquote maybe struggle or survive
Mm,
or put
mhm.
one foot in front of the other. So, because of that, we internalize a lot of the feelings. And you said something that's profound as well. We can't heal what we can't feel. So we have to feel it. We have to be able to, as you say, be okay with knowing and saying, I'm not okay right now. I'm grieving. But not just because of what we internalize as sugars, but society looks at grief as dark. It's
Mm,
dark. It's not a subject that we want to talk about.
yeah.
It's it's
Sad. It's to be avoided.
yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes, yes. So you know what the reality is, it's not a compassion problem. It's not an empathy problem. It's not a sympathy problem. It's an education problem.
Mm,
So until we start to talk about it, and until we start to face it, and until we start to accept that, okay, it's okay for me to acknowledge, number one, myself, that I'm hurting. It hurts. It's painful. And then for society to say, it's okay for you to hurt. And then even beyond that, for us to say, getting help is also okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm crazy.
No.
It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm way out because I'm really crying and it's been over a year and I'm still crying, or because others have said, come on now, you should be over it by now.
Yeah.
And we're internalizing it. But what we have to understand is that if we don't let it out, and
Mhm.
our first step of the process is give yourself permission to grieve. So if we don't do that, it becomes unresolved grief. And it's almost like that cancer that's sitting in there that may be dormant, but it can manifest in unhealthy physical, mental,
Yes.
emotional, spiritual ways, and we don't even know what's wrong. We don't understand why, we're having these challenges. And it could be that little nudge of grief that you never dealt with because you were strong, or because I can handle it, or because someone else told me don't cry, or someone else said, come on now, you're being selfish. So
Mm,
we have
mm,
to
mm.
have to give ourselves permission to grieve, and give ourselves permission to say, I need some help with this.
Ooh, Dora, you done said a whole mouthful because I mean, everything that you just said, and particularly for um in the African American community. I think back to that episode of Good Times, when James died, and Florida was just doing all the stuff around the house and all the things, and then she finally just dropped the plate and was like, damn, damn, that is like it resonates through the African American community, but it is also representative of how we won't allow ourselves to grieve, because we don't want to drop, we don't want to fall, or other people are like, no, that's, you should be over there, but we have stuff to do, we have a family we have to take care of, there's no time for tears, we have to, and so we internalize the things that we've seen in our culture, the things that we've
Yes.
seen on TV, the messages that we've received in our own family, that when we get to this grieving process, and sugar, we could be grieving something, just okay, tell on myself, tell the truth, shame the devil, grieving not having my father in my life,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
we can't go back in the time, we can't go and make that up, but still grieving something that is long, 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 since ago. So there's a lot of things and areas where we could be grieving in our life, but we're told, oh girl, don't worry about that, or just move on from that, or just and so it becomes this underpinning of our anxiousness. It becomes this underpinning of this hard exterior shell, and our face loses its smile, and we don't realize that it was because we never got was taught how to grieve, was told that it's okay to grieve, was given the time to grieve, or made time and made space for ourselves to
Mhm.
grieve. And then it becomes almost like, in a way, our identity. It changes
Absolutely.
kind of how we see ourselves, how we see our world, and then how we move forward. And here we are now at these big ages, whatever that age is, and we're trying to accomplish this goal or that goal, and wondering why we just can't quite get there, or why the nothing's quite wrong, but nothing's quite right either. And we're trying to put our finger on it, you know, and
Yes.
not realizing we got to get down into the roots. And 9 times out of 10, there's something that hurt you that we haven't dealt with. There's some grief under there that we haven't given ourselves space to air that thing out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh man, you
So
said
true.
so much.
So true.
Mm.
And it's like it, and it's exactly what you said. It's a form of existential grief, and it's I don't know. There's this emptiness. There's just this void. There's just this
Mhm.
lack of, what am I supposed to do with my life? And well, with coaching, we don't go back into the past, but the reality is the perfect example that you gave. If there was something that you missed, didn't have, or was taken away from you in the past, and you never really talked about it, you held it in, or others said, okay, well, that's life. It is what it is.
Mhm.
Come on now, you've got to get over it. That was 20 years ago. Then that means at this big age now, we're still really, really, really carrying it. We're carrying it still,
Yes.
and it's affecting everything else. It's affecting our relationships with others and with ourselves. It's affecting our self love. And we may not even be able to pinpoint it.
Right.
And
Right.
and and that's why we have to say and acknowledge, first of all, we have to talk about it. That's the main thing. Be able to talk about it. And the main thing with our coaching is we have to provide that support in a safe, nurturing, and non judgmental environment. Because you're talking with another friend and they're saying, well, I lost my mom too, but come on now, your mom's been dead for 2 years and you're still going to the cemetery every day. Well, what does that do to you? That means, okay, well, I should stop going to the cemetery. And that's why I say it's an education problem. No, that's not what it means. It means that going to the cemetery every day may be solace, peace, and healing for you, but not for the other person.
Mhm.
I had a client that came to the cemetery every day for 2 years after she lost her son to gun violence.
Mm.
Friends were saying, if you stop going to the cemetery, then you can heal. But she came for 2 years every Sunday straight. Dora, please go to the to the gravesite with me. And I went. But guess what? She, as a result of that, she authored a book. Who gave you permission to kill my son? Because see, while she was at the cemetery, when everyone said stop going, she was writing. She was journaling. She was sharing her feelings with me. This is what I feel. This is how, and that's what happened as a result. And now, what does that do? It helps other people to let them know that it's okay for you to grieve in the way that you grieve, in the time frame that you grieve. Now, we're not saying grieve forever, but we're saying with help, support, and without listening to the non-judgmental friends that say what works for them should work for you. But again, it's not our fault. It's not our
Right.
fault even that we say the wrong things, such as, I understand how you feel because my son was murdered too. Well, no, you don't.
Yeah.
But no one has told us saying, I understand how you feel is not the
Every-
best thing to
Right.
say. But we don't know. We're saying it with good intention. That's why I say education,
Yeah.
grief education is critical for us to help each other.
Yeah. 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 I love a couple of things that you said that I want to make sure that the sugars don't miss. One, the timeline of grief and how we grieve is different for everyone. So for someone, like you said, going to the gravesite or even driving past that business for the job that you lost, or holding on to the baby blanket, if you just got a bad report from the doctor. For some people, that may be comforting. For other people, that may prolong their grieving process. So we can't say what works for one works for the other person. The length of time, it may take some people 2 months. Take some people 2 years. It may take some people 5 years. We can't
Yes.
say how long that grieving process takes, or what the peak and the when it trails off. Or I may cry every day and then it may go down to once a week and maybe once every
Yes.
month. It looks different for everyone, and I understand that personally. I lost Well, she was really my cousin, but we were more raised like sisters, you know. So I say I lost my sister
Mm-hmm.
in 2021 to COVID, you know, complications with COVID. And it was a few days before her birthday, and it really rocked. You know, it rocked my entire family, you know, because she was so young and we were on the kind of the tail end of COVID. So it was like, wait a minute, where did this come from? And so every day I have this, you know, this process of my own. I have a few articles of her clothing. So when I'm really, really missing her, I'll put on, you know, one of her shirts or, you know, just to feel close to her. Or, you know, there's a particular song that she loves that I cannot, if I play it, even me thinking about it, it just makes me want to tear up. Like I'm not there yet where I can listen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to that song. And that was back in 2021, you know, and so giving yourself that space and that time and finding kind of what makes you feel close to that person. And, you know, as you're walking this out, or not even, again, it's not just about the person, but just whatever that situation is, and inviting the right people in to help you navigate those emotions and
Yes.
what you're walking through. Because again, I tell my clients all the time, I have a coach, I have a therapist, I have a business coach, you know. So
Right.
everybody heard about Booger. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get me from heaven. Her name is Constance, but I
Okay.
called her Booger, but that's my Booger. But so everybody knew, you know, that,
Yes.
you know, and so having your own process, you know, and allowing yourself to do what works for you is critical as you're navigating the grief process. And then as you're navigating it, I love what you said. Your client, she was able to get to the fruit. She was able to get to the leaves in writing her book. That pain became part of her purpose. That
Yes.
pain became the platform for her to be able to help other people. So you can take that pain and use it to create something beautiful. That's where I think,
Yes.
you know, in scripture where it says, I'll give you beauty for ashes. You know, he took those ashes and allowed that space for it to become something beautiful. You know, so our grief is not the end. It's not, you know, yes, it hurts. Yes, it's unfair. Yes, you know, we wish we didn't have to work through that, but there's a value in that as well. But we only find it if we allow ourselves to
Yes.
go through that process, you know. Now,
Yes.
you have created something, a non-therapy approach to grief to help your clients navigate grief. Talk to me a little bit about that approach.
Yes. Well, coaching, with most of us now are familiar with coaching. Grief coaching is, I like to say, it's a beast of its own because of the sensitive nature of it. But everyone doesn't always need to be fixed, diagnosed, or cured.
Hmm.
So with grief coaching, it's non-therapeutic. So we don't offer professional counseling, therapy, mental health services. What we do is almost like, sometimes we say we're your grief buddies. We're your grief partners. So what we do is journey with you. We're not in front of you to pull you, not behind you to push you, but to honestly letting you know they're going to, as you navigate this grief, there's going to be some wrong turns, some crooked paths, some dead ends. Sometimes the brush is so high you feel you can't put one foot in front of the other. What do? We're journeying with you. We're almost like a GPS, but not a GPS to say, oh, no, 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 detour, don't go down that way because the brush is too high, but to help you to find your own way through that grief journey. So the process is actually my 5-step method, which of course begins with giving yourself permission to grieve. Because if we don't allow you to, I tell my students, let them just regurgitate all over you, not literally, but until we allow, don't, if until we get you to the place of giving yourself permission to say, I hurt, and for us to listen to you without saying you shouldn't feel, without saying everything everyone else has already told you, but to say, it's okay, sugar, for you to feel that way. Then what we do is walk with you through moving to, let's talk about the life and legacy of that loved one.
Hmm.
And then slowly helping them to start to okay, let's slowly start to incorporate some new traditions into the old traditions. Of
Mhm.
course, gradually moving you through that process. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is get you to a place of knowing that, guess what? I've acknowledged that this has happened, but I've also accepted the reality of it and know that, wow, my life still matters. My life still counts.
Mhm.
And if I really accept it, it can even have meaning and purpose going forward. And then moving them into that acceptance of, okay, so what does my life look like? It may be something related to the loss of the loved one. I mean, that's, why movements are started, because Mothers Against Drunk Drivers was started because of the loss due to. And so then you start to find purpose in your life right now. I have a mantra: everything in life is temporary, including life itself. So decide to say yes to the gift of now. So bringing you into the present right now, this very moment, because that's really all we have. That's really all we have. So my obligation is to live my life right now for the rest of my life. So what am I going to do with it? And we help them to start to think about your own legacy. Everybody's familiar with the poem The Dash. That dash between your year of birth and your year of death. Oprah says your legacy is every life that you touch. So you may be able to use that loss to help someone else create that legacy in the dash. So that's really a full circle of what we do. Again, it's personalized, it's heart centered, it's not, again, therapy or mental health services. It's really just working with that client wherever they are.
Mhm. Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. And the 5 steps that you outline, again, they even work for if there's a different type of loss. And so as you were talking, I was, kind of sitting here reflecting on when I unexpectedly lost my job in 2016. And so that was a grieving process because I'd spent all of these years, dedicated my life in, getting this doctorate degree, and because I was going to be the eventually the president of XY University and all
Yes.
of these things. And then skirt, nope, that shut down, that door closed, and so allowing myself to grieve that and be open to, okay, this is how I feel about that, and then talking to someone about it. All of the steps that you outline, how can I incorporate the old with the new? And now here having my own business and
Yeah.
doing what I was trying to do for someone else, doing it for myself, and this was like 6 years ago, now. But using that you just said, it works for, be it the loss of a loved one, be it the loss of a job, be it the loss of an identity, be it the loss of a relationship. It's all part of this loss grieving process. And how do we incorporate what we thought was going to happen, what we thought would be here forever, or what we thought, how do we incorporate that into our life now and moving forward and allowing it to create something beautiful. um Something else that we kind of said earlier is that a lot of people, we don't know that we're grieving. So what are some signs that maybe, Sugar, if you're feeling this or seeing this or experiencing this, that you might be grieving?
Mhm. And of course, we always have to use the disclaimer, if you feel that there's a thought of harming yourself, a thought of harming someone else, of course, you want to utilize the text 988 or call for the National Suicide and Crises Hotline. That's for someone to talk to.
Absolutely.
But even though you may not know why you're feeling what you're feeling, still talk to somebody. I'm feeling just sad, and I can't identify why I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling not motivated, and I don't know why I'm feeling not motivated. Now, we're not saying that it's a result of current grief, cumulative grief, or grief that happened 25 years ago. But the key is a feeling that's less than what should be your normal character and feeling should be addressed. It should be just talking it out again with a non-judgmental friend, even a counselor, a therapist, a coach, just talking it out. Because if you can't identify what that feeling is, then something's not right. Something's wrong. Not to say we're going to be happy and jolly every day, because life has its ebbs and flows. It's supposed to, otherwise it would be boring and monotonous.
Right.
So, but if there's something, like I mentioned earlier, existential grief, that there's a hole here, there's an emptiness here. I've tried this and I've tried to do this and this isn't working, and I've tried to do this and this isn't working, and I've tried that job and that didn't work. So I got another job and that's still not working. And I don't know why. I'm very qualified. I like to work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But something's missing. Something's keeping me from moving forward. Something's keeping me from the happiest that I know that I was born and desired to be.
Mm-hmm.
We are not saying that it's grief. We're not saying that it's related to grief, but we're saying that you deserve to live a joyful, full life. So reach out to it can be a spiritual advisor, as long as it's a non-judgmental person that won't say, oh, what's wrong with you is that you listen to your sister and you should be like your sister. And because it's something you mentioned earlier, right now is the present, so we cannot go back and change the past. So even if you're still feeling and holding on to maybe guilt, maybe regret from something that you didn't do or something that happened, or unforgiveness against someone, you're still holding that from
Yeah.
20 years ago. Well, that person has gone on with their life and they're living. How is that holding on to that not forgiving affecting, how much of it's taking your energy every day, affecting your life, your relationships, your career? So we have to acknowledge one thing: I cannot go back and change the past.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I can do right now, today, the present, is make a decision that I'm going to do the best I can to live my life today, to make it the best possible outcome fulfilled life for me tomorrow. And then when you make that decision, you'll start to things will start to unfold, or we like to say taking action steps. And whatever your coach or your counselor gives you as action steps to help you, it's baby steps. People don't eh, you don't have to have leaps, bounds, you don't have to fly overnight, but taking baby steps. So if you're huddled up and you can't come out the house, and it's been 3 weeks, and you lost that job, and I just don't feel like doing anything but just laying here in the bed. I don't feel like job hunting today. I don't feel like doing anything like that. Yeah, you're grieving, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. But instead of saying, okay, well, your action steps should be to send out 10 resumes every day. Well,
Right.
well, maybe that may not happen for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you send out one, then celebrate that. That's a win. As coaches, we celebrate all wins. We celebrate baby steps. If you weren't able to send out one, but you got up out the bed and you made a cup of coffee,
That part.
wow, we celebrate that win. So allow yourself to take baby steps. Just don't do
Nothing.
nothing.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So you've hit so many. I mean, you've hit some things that I was going to ask that I didn't even get a chance to ask because you already hit it. So okay. So basically, in summation, for my sugars who you don't know if you're grieving or you might be grieving, if there's an emotion, a thought, or even a recurring physical, symptom or, sensation that you're feeling that is not tied to anything your doctor said, well, no, your hand is fine, or no, and there's nothing there, but it just won't let you go. And it's just on repeat. And it's almost like you can't move past that thing. We need you to come and talk to someone, because grief might be up under that thing and you just may not know it. It's not necessarily that you have to be crying every day or crying, every year on their birthday, or, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that, it could be something as simple as, I all of a sudden just can't go to sleep at night. I'm just
Yes.
up all
Yes.
night, or, or my hand just started hurting and I don't know. I went to the doctor and they said it's fine, but grief can manifest in
Yes.
our physical,
Yes.
in our mental, in our emotional. So if you're seeing that there's something that has just almost like the light has dimmed a little bit, or you're not as joyful, or maybe you don't find, joy in the things that used to, bring you joy anymore, or maybe you feel like maybe you're just a shadow, of
Yeah,
yourself.
I like that.
um, we need you to speak with a professional, be that, a coach, be that Dora, be that me, be a therapist, so that we can really have this conversation to see kind of where you are, and see what's going on, and help you or get you connected to the help that you need. We basically don't want you suffering in silence,
Yeah.
there. We don't want you trying to white knuckle it, to get through, to the next day. We don't want you feeling, shameful because you're feeling how you're feeling. We want you, if you have a question or in doubt, seek out, some help, and seek out someone to come alongside you, um, in that. And
Yes.
I also love what you said, Dora, about the tips on what we can do to kind of help navigate this. Baby steps is might as well be my middle name, because I say this all the time with my clients, because we want to jump from 0 to 60 like
Yeah.
that, and that's not how real progress works. We'll get there and then we'll find ourselves coming right back to square one, because
Yes.
we haven't given ourselves that time to just take the baby step.
Mhm.
I love what you said about, it might not have been 10 applications today. It might have just been, I got out of the bed today. And that was the story of my life. When I lost my
Wow.
job in 2016, some days I only got out of bed because I knew that my fur baby Tyson was going to poop in the house. You know, and
Love it.
so it wasn't, oh, I need to apply for, I need to call all of my connections in my network. No, I got out of bed today and I actually took a shower and put on some clean clothes. That was
Yes.
victory, for a few months, not just one day, for a few months. Like that was victory. And that's okay. So navigating your grief process, it's all about the baby steps. It's all about, what can I do today to just help move the needle forward, even if it only
Just
goes
a
forward
little bit. Yes.
just a boop, but celebrating that and not looking at, oh, by now I should be, by
Yes.
now I should have been, by now I shouldn't be crying, by now I still shouldn't be mad at what that boss said, or by now I still shouldn't be mad about the divorce or that breakup, or
Yes.
take all of the number one thing you can do right after you give yourself that space to grieve and reach out to one of us, is allow yourself to give yourself permission to navigate this thing in whatever way, whatever timing, whatever
We
space
do.
that you need, because we add more pressure to ourselves when we hit even when we're not grieving, when we're just navigating life and we're
Yeah.
saying, well, I'm 45, by now I should be, I'm 60, by now I should be. We putting ourselves on the grief spectrum, even when we just do that,
We
So
are.
removing that from our vocabulary, removing that from the way that we see ourselves, can go a long way,
Mhm.
helping us
Mhm.
to just navigate, life in general, but definitely this grieving process. So
So
good.
true. So true. So true. So, and it's one thing you said when you talked about physical and you gave the example of, okay, the hand hurts. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is because grief can manifest in so many physical symptoms. And I always use this example. I worked in the cemetery, so thousands and thousands and thousands of death certificates crossed my desk.
Mm.
Not once did I ever see stress listed as a cause of death. Now, we do know that stress can be the underlying
Call.
cause of so many of the other
Yes.
listings as
Yes.
cause of death. So think about that. Are
Yeah.
you allowing I like to say, the energy of stress to consume
Yes.
your day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
life story,
Mm-hmm.
your relationships? And you see, you don't look, just like you don't identify grief as grief. Are you may not even be identifying stress
Yeah.
as stress. And as you said, that hand, that pain or that anxiety, and they say, well, tests are fine, blood tests are fine, heart rate is fine, everything's fine. We don't see anything. No, but there's something wrong, as you say.
Right.
I can't sleep, I can't think, I can't. Yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a doctor one time, amazing doctor. I was working towards my doctorate degree at the time that this happened, and I had a headache. And the headache just, it didn't matter what I took. I had taken so many Tylenol, Advil,
Yeah.
migraine. I mean, and to the point where I had to stop because I was looking at the box going, wait, how many hours has it been? I don't want to accidentally, poison myself because I've taken, because the headache
Yeah.
would not go away. And I went to the doctor and I said, I have a headache right now. No, he had a student shadowing him. He had a student shadowing him.
Hmm.
And I said, I have a headache and it just would not go away. And I have things to do because I was working full time and getting my doctorate degree. A friend was getting married. And so I was a bridesmaid. And so I was like, I have to be here. I have to do this. And I was telling him all the things. And I was like, this headache, it's just, he said, where's the headache? I said, it just feels like a rubber band. It's just around my head. So I can still, function, but it's
Hmm.
just like headache, headache, headache. And he stopped. He just let me get it all out. And then he looked at the student and said, what's her diagnosis? And the student said, she has a tension headache. And he said, what causes tension headaches? And the student said, exorbitant amounts of stress that, the patient needs to slow down, calm down, because medication will not fix it because there's nothing wrong in her physical body. I mean, and the student was just, and I'm just sitting there. And the doctor looked at me and he said, so what do you think we should do? And I said, just give me some medicine. Give me some Tylenol because I'm just ready to be done with this. And he looked me square eyeball to eyeball. And he said, I'm giving you one. He said, you're getting one. I think it was like a 14-day. He said, you're getting one, no refills. If you come back to me saying that you need more, now we have to have a different conversation. You have to slow down. You have to get these things. And he just sat and just talked to me about all the things that at that time I didn't want to hear that. Ain't
Yeah.
nobody have time for that. Just give me my medicine. Let me go. I gotta go. But he was teaching me. Then I was in my early, I was in my 20s then. He was teaching me right then. He said, now you have to get this under control because your body is telling you, if you don't, I'm going to shut down.
Yeah.
And he said, I know that that's what your body is saying. So I'm going to stop you before your body does. And I'm so grateful to him for having that conversation with me
Yes.
then and literally putting the bumpers on me to say, if you come back here, and he told me, this is what we're going to do. Then it's going to be a psychiatric conversation. Then
Yeah.
we're going to be, and that jarred me so.
Yes.
Okay, and so we don't when that stress piece, because we have to go, we have to be here, we have to be there, and we're just constantly pushing that grief down, pushing that stress down, pushing, and now we have ulcers, and now we're having heart attacks,
Yes.
mental breakdowns, and now we're having, these disassociations in our mental
Hmm.
that we are not seeing, as part of that
Yes.
stress grief, process that, so again, we say sugar. If at any point, at any time, you think anything is not quite right, it doesn't matter how little the symptom or sign it, come talk to us. Come just come on and have a seat
Let us
with
know.
Dora, with me. Just come sit down and talk to us. Now, for the friend of the person that's grieving, for the spouse, for the loved one of the person that's in this grieving process, what tips would you give them? Because like we said, it's an education piece. But
Education.
we don't know that we're not saying the right thing to support our loved one who's grieving. What tips or what techniques would you give to the person, to the loved one of the person that's grieving, that would help us to be more supportive, understanding, and helping that person navigate the grief process?
Very simple. Listen without trying to fix or cure them.
Hmm.
Let them grieve. Listen without trying to fix or cure them. It requires patience. Don't rush the process. Please don't tell them what they should or shouldn't do. The greatest gift that we can give someone who's grieving is to listen to them. That's what we don't do. We try to fix. And the reality is, think about it. We don't really listen to hear
Hmm.
what that other person is really saying. We listen to respond because we're listening to what they're saying, but already our brain is thinking of a response to give them, to fix them, or to help them. So it's a challenge for us because we don't want to see our loved one go through this. We don't want to see our loved one cry every day. We want to see our loved one, put away the pictures and put away the blankets and the things so that, you can feel better and stop feeling like this. But education will help us to understand that that's not the best thing for that person. Listen to them. Let them have the pictures. Now, it's a process because eventually, maybe if that picture is a picture that makes them continuously cry, let's maybe replace it with a picture that makes them smile.
Yeah.
So it's still a picture. But initially, just don't try to fix them. Say, I am here to support you in whatever way I can. So don't even question them. Don't even try to pull from them the answers that you want to hear. Now, support them in making sure that they're doing the best they can with staying healthy, with eating, with
Right.
getting sleep. Um, and having the right support system around, because sometimes if you're the caregiver or the next of kin, you may have to be in control of their support system that's coming in every day, and it leaves more negative in the environment than support. Because sometimes I'll say, if you're going to visit the house to be there to support. Shut up.
Mm. Say that one more time. Say that one more
Silence
time.
is golden. Silence is golden because your presence says, I'm here to support you. And then do what, instead of asking them, if you need anything, call me. Well, people, after a loss, they have 100 decisions that have to be made. I'm asking them, do you want the ring on or you want the ring off? You want the eyeglasses on? You want the eyeglasses? They're in task mode. They don't know what they need. So try to do something that helps them. Okay, I'll take the children to school. I'll do this. I'll do dialysis. I'll do whatever you can suggest to do, but don't overwhelm them. Just be there. Be there and shut up. Means silence is golden to someone who's grieving. Here to support you in whatever way I can. Because then you leave it open for them to let you know if and what they need.
Mm, that shut up, sugar. That's it. Sometimes, but sometimes something that simple will go a long way. Sometimes we think we need to feel the gap of silence with our words,
Right.
and we don't. We just need to shut up, and sometimes our presence being there, just our body, being there, or sending that text message to just say,
Yes.
I'm here for you, today, if
Yes.
you want, if you want to talk.
Yes.
Something that was really helpful, again, in me losing my job, um, it was that the very sister cousin that I'm speaking about, that I
Good.
also lost. She would just send me a text message and say, "You got out of the bed today?"
Mhm.
"Yeah, I got out the bed." "Well, good job getting out of the bed
Yes.
today." Just
Yes.
to cheer me on,
Mhm.
for the little things that I was, doing, and to be there to hear me just kind of da 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 about what I was, feeling. But not that she did anything to fix it, not that, you know,
Right.
but sometimes kind of anticipating, hey, I made a reservation for you to,
Yes.
go get a massage, whatever day you want, it's already there, just whenever you're ready, so anticipating some of
Same.
those things. Something that I did for my aunt when my sister cousin passed away, I talked to her and I said, okay, we need to kind of talk about some therapy, and that in again in our community. Oh no, I'm
Yeah.
not doing a therapy. I'm not. Ooh. And so I just kind of eased that thing in there. And the way that I eased it in, I said, you don't have to do anything. I will, look at some different people. And again, because of my profession and
Mhm.
what I do, I have a different eye, so I was able to look at knowing her, knowing, some of what we've talked about. And I picked, I think it was only like four.
Mhm.
I didn't
Mhm.
overwhelm her with this big list. I just picked
Right.
four, and I said, okay, you read their profile. Tell me which one kind of stands out to you. And when she did, I reached out on her behalf. I made that initial connection so that all my aunt had to do was just pick up the phone. So something like that, just making it simple for them
That.
to get the help that they need if you see that they need help, or get the
Yes.
food, just having it in the fridge so that they don't have to
Yes.
about it, or go ahead and door dashing that thing on, onto the place, or saying, hey, I found some companies that are hiring. Here's a list of, them in some positions that I think, might be a good fit
Fit
for
for you.
you, or
Mhm.
or hey, I found this group over here. I'm gonna go, if you want to join me, we can
Yes.
go together, but just having that empathy and that sympathy and that compassion, just to sit, be quiet, not necessarily trying to get them to move, but making it easy
Right.
for them
For
to
them.
move
Mhm.
when they're ready to,
Yes.
to move, to take those baby steps.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And something you said too, when they are ready versus pushing them
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Powerful.
absolutely, and I use myself, as just I'm the transparent coach. I always tell people, I tell on myself all the time,
Mhm.
so that you can see that this isn't something that any of us are excluded from.
No.
Even as the coach, as I grieve.
Yes.
Things happen, and I need somebody to come
Life.
and help me navigate this thing. So I've been on the grieving side of the spectrum, still technically walking out the
Mhm.
grieving side of the spectrum. And I stood with others in their, grieving process, but at the end of the day, regardless of what side you may find yourself on,
Right.
potentially grieving, or you are the loved one of someone who is grieving, at the end of all of this, it's all about just allowing yourself, or allowing that person, the space to feel what they feel as they
Yeah.
seek out this healing process, even if it may be a little inconvenient, for you, or, for them, even if it's not going to be pretty, it's not going to be neat. It's pretty much going to be messy, but allowing that space for the mess, allowing that space and that time for
Mhm.
this thing to play out in the
Mhm.
way, that it needs to play out, knowing that on the other side of it, that's really where the beauty comes
On
in.
the other
We can't shortcut it. We can't
side.
just hurry up and get to, status quo. We can't help to, because honestly, whatever life was before that thing happened, however we functioned, however we moved, however we showed up, however we were, able to take care of the kids, we're going to be different
Yes.
on the other side of it. So
Mhm.
there is no going back to who I was. I am never going to be the same after losing Booger.
No.
It's and understanding that it's going to be different, allowing for it to be different,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
going through the process, so that when you get to that different doesn't mean bad,
It's
but that
different.
it's just different,
Mhm.
and often that different, if we've allowed ourselves to go through this process, it's actually more beautiful.
Yes, it can be. It can be. And know that grief itself is never, ever, ever fully eradicated.
Never.
So don't think you're going to get it. That's why I say be careful with the words we use. It's never fully eradicated. It's only experienced. So
Exactly.
think of all the other things that you've experienced in your life and the resilience as a result of it and the tenacity as a result of it. So grief, as you say, on the other side, you've experienced, and now that new you can experience what's next, what's on the other side, what's on that open side. But again, it all boils down to you being able to allow and receive whatever is on the other side and taking the action to do so versus spiraling down in that deep dark fog of grief and staying there.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Well, Dora, this has been phenomenal. So many nuggets were dropped. You were talking about the education piece. I think we've educated a lot of people today on some things that really, like I said, aren't really talked about.
Mhm.
Now I know that there's a grief awareness day that's coming up here soon in DC. So tell the sugars more about that and how they can, connect with you.
Awesome. I'm so excited about Grief Awareness Day. The National Grief Awareness Day was actually started in 2014 by Angie Cartwright, who lost her mother. But this year, I had this divine intuitive thought. Let's do something. I'm here in Washington, D.C., so let's do something here in the nation's capital. So we're doing Grief Awareness Day in Washington, D.C., and that's on August the 31st. An intimate gathering for those who are grieving, for those who are supporting those others who are grieving, or just a community to come together and love up on each other regardless of what you might be going through, or regardless of what you may have gone through already. And we're going to have some phenomenal grief phenomenal guest speakers. We're going to do some yoga. We're going to do some exercises. So, because see, what we have to realize is grief affects every other area of our lives. So we're going to try to touch on that. One of our grief coaches, a psychologist that's here in the area, she specializes in working with Black teens and Black females who are grieving. She's going to be here as well. So we're just going to have 2 hours of fun. And the theme is grief does not have to be dark. So we're going to have fun. We're going to have education, information, activities, and talk about grief. A community of 2 hours of enjoying each other, talking about grief. And again, that's August the 31st. All of our information on everything that we do and all the programs, www.fromgrief2gratitude.com. Fromgrief2gratitude.com.
Sugars, if
Yes.
you have any questions about all things grief, or the National Grief Awareness Day, contact Dora. As you can see, she is a wealth of information, and she is here to assist you. Thank you so much, Dora, for joining us today and educating all of us kind of on grief and the grief process. This has been amazing.
Thank you for allowing me to share with your audience.
Absolutely.